In Chapter 4.2, we're going to learn the basics of factoring a trinomial. If you recall, back in Chapter 3, we talked about the FOIL system where we had two binomials, and when we FOILed them, first term outside, inside, last, and combined the like terms, we ended up with a trinomial. Now what we're trying to do is the reverse process. And there's four patterns to factoring the trinomial. The first one is if all the signs are positive, x squared plus bx plus c. In the second one, it's the first term and the last term are positive, but the middle term is negative. Then in the third form, it's x squared plus bx minus c, and in the fourth one, it's x squared minus bx minus c. We want to talk about the first two, and then we want to talk about the second two because there is a pattern here. So we're going to separate those two out. When we look at these now, we have to figure out what's our pattern going to be. So when you see all positives, as we have in our first trinomial, once you factor it, you should have a pattern x plus and some number, and then x plus some number. All right? In the second one, because the last term is positive, what you will end up with is two negatives multiplied together. So when we get the pattern here, it will be x minus something times x minus something. Now I separate those from the next two because of the way we approach those. When we have the c term as positive, as we have in the first two, what we're looking for is a combination so that when we take that c term, we're going to say both things multiplied together will equal that c. Sometimes both of them will be positive, and sometimes both numbers will be negative. Now, you may be a little confused by what I've said, so why don't we take a look at some examples in the book? If we take a look at number 22 on page 248, looking at number 22, what we have is a squared plus 10a plus 25. All right? Now, the question we're going to ask ourselves is, in this particular case, what two numbers, when multiplied together, give us 25, and when added together, give us 10? Now, the factors of 25 are 25 and 1, and 5 and 5. Well, 25 plus 1 gives me 26. That won't work, but 5 and 5 does work. So, now I know that when I factor this, what I'm going to get is a plus 5 times a plus 5. So in this first pattern, what you're asking yourself every time is, what two numbers when multiplied together give me that last term? And then if I add them together, it will give me that middle term. But now let's take a look at the second pattern, where the middle term is a negative bx. All right, let's get an example of that. Let's take a look at problem number 12, where it says x squared minus 11x, but plus 24. Now again, I'm asking myself, what two numbers when multiplied together give me 24, and when added together will give me 11? The factors are 24 and 1, 12 and 2, 8 and 3, and 6 and 4. They love the number 24 when it comes to factoring. Well, 24 and 1 doesn't work, 12 and 2 doesn't work, 6 and 4 only totals 10, but 8 and 3 total 11. That's what we're looking for. But this time in our pattern, because that middle term is negative, it now becomes x minus 8 times x minus 3. And you might ask, does it matter whether I put x minus 8 or x minus 3 as the first term? No, it doesn't matter. Either way works fine. Our first example, unfortunately, was a plus 5 and a plus 5, so there was no debate there. So that's how that second pattern works. Now, I separated that from the last two because when you have a negative c factor, now what you're asking yourself is not addition but subtraction. In this particular case, what you'll end up with is x plus something times x minus something. That gives you a negative c at the end. And in the last one, it's the same sort of thing. However, if you like to put the larger number first, then that would be x minus something times x plus something. Does it matter if you put the plus or the minus first? No. But whenever you see a negative c, that last term is negative, then you know you're going to have a pattern where one is positive and one is negative. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at problem number 20, which is x squared plus 7x minus 18. All right? As you can tell, having a firm grasp of multiplication facts really does help here. Now, the question is, what two numbers when multiplied together give me 18? But now it's the difference between the two has to be 7. Now, the factors for 18 are 18 and 1, 9 and 2, 6 and 3. Well, 18 and 1 doesn't work, and 6 and 3, the difference there is only 3. But when we take 9 and 2, the difference between 9 and 2 is 7. So now we know our combination is supposed to be x plus. Now it does make a difference what number you put in there because one is plus and one is minus. And what determines that is that sign right in the middle term here. In this particular case, that sign being positive, I have to put the larger term as positive. And then x minus 2, the smaller term has to be negative. So it's x plus 9 times x minus 2. And with this particular third pattern, if you always set it up as x plus and then x minus, the larger term will always go with the x plus. That's the reason I did it that way. But if you FOIL that, you're going to get x squared plus 9x minus 2x minus 18. And when you combine those two middle terms, you're going to find that that turns out to be x squared plus 7x minus 18. Now looking at the last pattern, let's take a look at a sample problem there. How about problem number 28? This is x squared minus 11x minus 60. Now 60 is a pretty large term and it has a lot of different kinds of combinations to it. But let's take a look at them. What two numbers when multiplied together give me 60, the difference of which is 11? 60 and 1, that doesn't work. 30 and 2, that doesn't work. How about 15 and 4? Oh, we could have tried 20 and 3, that wouldn't have worked either. But 15 minus 4, that gives me 11. And if I set it up the way I said I was going to set it up with x minus times x plus, now because that middle term is negative here, I have to put the larger number with the negative sign. So it's negative 15 and positive 4. I want to take a look at one more problem very quickly, and that's number 40. Number 40 is r squared minus 9rs minus 36s squared. The only reason I bring that up is because now they put in two variables, R and S. But to solve this problem, we've got to figure out which pattern do we have here. Do we have 1, 2, 3, or 4? And looking across, we can see that we have pattern 4. So now all I ask myself is, what two numbers, when multiplied together, give me 36, and the difference is 9? All right, well, 36 times 1 doesn't work. 18 times 2 doesn't work. 12 times 3. Because I know 9 times 4 won't work either, but 12 times 3 does work. So that's our pattern. And when we set this up, what we have is R, and we put the minus here, but in this particular case, because we have that second term, we have to put an S in here, and then R plus, and then an S. That way we don't drop out our S term. The most important thing is figuring out the numbers. And we said the combination should be 12, so it's negative 12S and 3. What you need to do is practice as many of these as you can so that when you glance at the trinomial, you immediately recognize what the pattern is, and you now know how to set up your binomials to solve them correctly.